Thank you again for this opportunity to me present some ideas I'm working on. I'm working on my PhD material, but it's an ongoing research with Mustadafin Foundation. My presentation title, Islamic Aesthetic and Ethics of Giving Sadaqah as a Moral Economy. And my main, sorry, I'm using too many devices here to read from it. So my main task in this presentation is to explore the entanglement of religious and social values that are constitutive of sorry, I don't know what's happening to my PowerPoint. Yeah, that are constitutive of Islamic ethics of giving. The main argument of the paper is that Islamic ethics of giving is not reducible to oneself relation to God, to the exclusion of other and the social. I argue that religious values are integral to the social life and to one caring about the other. Driven by Islamic ethics of giving and of caring about the other and the social, historically Muslim in Cape Town and elsewhere has provided a range of social service to engage with social problems. The formation of modern state in majority and minority Muslim society initiated the institutionalization of Islamic charity or Zakah or philanthropy, a different name, had initiated the institutionalization of it and the competition about it between state civic institute and between civic institute and the state. In the post-colonial society in Africa and elsewhere, there have been a rise in Islamic charity to counterbalance ever-emerging poverty resulted from modern state formation and from neoliberalism. Islamic giving or Islamic charity, it's been referred to as charity, philanthropy, and it includes zakah, waqf, ihsan, or any giving. Islamic giving have been seen by scholars as a powerful force of social change, political power, that constitute a microeconomy and a social network, and that is driven by religious value, but it is fundamentally or often it's part of and contribute to a political project. Now, these scholars, the majority of who looked at Islamic charity, they have somehow overlooked the religious value of Islamic giving. We have on the other side, other scholars who have foregrounded the religious value of Islamic giving, but they underestimated its social dimension. I'm speaking here about Amira Matirmaya in particular. She had considered Islamic giving as a giving to God only that is non-compassionate and that is non-political. So my presentation aimed to establish the connection between the religious value and the social significance of Islamic ethics of giving. And to do this, in this presentation, I consider Sadaqah as a moral economy. The paper considers Sadaqah as a moral economy in the basis that it's an institutionalized practice inspired by religious value and moral social obligation. Now, seeing Sadaqah as a moral economy, on the one hand, foreground the role of religion in responding to ever-emerging social problem and in shaping the ethical life. On the other hand, and that is also maybe my main argument, on the other hand, it illustrates the embeddedness of the social and the religious value in Islamic ethics of giving. And again, the paper argued that Islamic ethics of giving is not exclusion to God. My ethnography in this presentation, I focus on Mustadafin Foundation. I focus on Mustadafin Foundation that was established in 1968 by a Muslim woman to provide a range of social service to empower women and youth in Cape Town. They have branches in various townships and Cape Flat in Western Cape, in which they provide education, clothing, healthcare, and food and skills development. The paper or this presentation aimed to unpack how Mustadafin ethics of giving, it's an embodied politics of piety. It inspire one's self-relation to God that is driven by Mustadafin caring about others and their sense of active citizenship and social commitment. These various ethical positions toward the social, the other, and one's self-relation to God are mutually constitutive of Mustadafin ethics of giving. And that's again to respond to the main argument of my paper. So throughout 7 years field work from 2010 to 2016, and I'm still in touch with Mustadafin. I actually visited them 2 weeks ago. I volunteer with Mustadafin Foundation in teaching drum and drama in various of their branch, mainly in Gulf. And I also have participated in the preparation and the performance of many of their public events, including Youth Day, African Day, Women Day, Al-Aqsa Day, that is the March of Palestine, and Ibrahim Haroun and the Steve Biko annual memorial. Now, these different events can also give us an idea about political history and belonging and engagement as well. I have participated various times in cooking a vast amount of food, and usually akni, this is an Indian meal with rice, which they distribute to poor family around the Cape Town and around the neighboring community. In this presentation, I will show and I will briefly present some ethnography of how the preparation, the cooking, and the distribution of food through this process, Mustadafin perform piety, compassion, belonging, and social commitment. Food preparation. Of course, these are some extract from a larger ethnography I made, so I choose the few events. I had participated in many events, as I mentioned, with Mustadafin, and I'm just choosing a few events to give you an idea. So food preparation, I'm presenting the material of 7 August, the last day of Ramadan, when we prepare the food now that we will distribute to Eid al-Fitr, the second day in the morning, like early morning. On 7th of August 2013, the last day of Ramadan, I chose Mustadafin for the preparation of raw material needed for cooking 55 pots of akni, which we again distributed at night. We gathered at their main office in Athlone at 9 a.m. We were 8 volunteers and 5 of Mustadafin workers. Shamima from Mustadafin welcomed us and highlighted the social and religious value of our volunteering. She said, "Thank you for being here to help us make others enjoy and celebrate the Eid. Our community are suffering poverty and hunger. We are going to make them a warm meal of akni." She concluded with an emphasis on the religious value of what we do, as also she referred to it as Sadaqah often, reminded us that God will reward you and bring barakah to your life. She then walked us through the office to the backyard where the necessary ingredient, onion, rice, oil, potato, and the spices needed all were packed on one wall. The meat was out of the fridge and laid on a plastic sheet on the floor. There was a large flag in their office. It's painted on one wall. And of course, on the corner, there was a CD player and the Quranic recitation. She allocated us to different tasks. Of course, some of us were defreezing the meat. Some had to rinse the rice. Others had to cut the onion. And I peeled the potato, actually, so often. This task took us 5 hours. Most of the time, we were silently each doing her or his job with the sound of Quranic recitation, filling the space with a religious aura that threw us in an aesthetic experience of Islam. The volunteer made various expressions, some of which triggered short conversation. I listened carefully to the participant expression and conversation. And in this kind of field work, I do not ask a question. So I always keep silent or maybe comment, be part of their conversation. So this is how at methodological level. I give you one example of the discussion that was there. Yusra, who studied in Islamic college, close to Mustadafin office as well. I met her many times there. She always volunteered. She wear a niqab, black niqab. She was at that day where she's and another two young guy, Junaid and Tariq, were tearing while cutting the onion. But she explained that her volunteering with Mustadafin is her sadaqah because she can't afford a cash sadaqah. She explained, you do sadaqah, God give you hasana. Sadaqah in Ramadan is worth more. Although Yusra was clearly counting God's reward, she stresses as well, Sadaqah is based on love. It must be made with love. God knows your intention. Sadaqah, Yusra was not the only one overt about her trading with God, and I'm here also using Meter Maya phrasing. It was repeatedly raised that because it is Ramadan, God will reward us more. Importantly, Yusra did not limit her sadaqah merely to religious value, but equally expressed her active citizenship and social commitment. And of course, that's why she actually volunteered with Mustadafin. She stated along the conversation, of course, in different occasions in the conversation, she stated, South Africa needs its youth. Our community suffered from apartheid and still suffering. We young, we can make change. Shamima was overseeing what we're doing and engaging in our conversation in an attempt to motivate us. She often invoked God to reward us for our work and admire our social impact, the social impact of our support. At that day, the last day of Ramadan, she was cooking actually a booty, a local, so national dish of South Africa, babuti. And she was cooking it for old woman in a care house of the old woman who I think they asked for it. But actually she used the babuti as an example to show the ways and extent to which Mustadafin care about and love the people they serve or they know. She stated that we know this woman for years. We love them like a family. Mustadafin, it's a big family. Now I argue in this paper, or I see that preparing a large amount of potato, rice, onion, and meat is best understood. It's best understood, I need to change my slides. It's best understood as a technology of self-formation that form the participant disposition and trigger their reflective thought and expression about the social and religious value of cooking and giving food to others. Their expression and conversation reveal their shared religious motive of being rewarded by God. Like most of the participants were really also mentioning that God reward, God reward. But equally, their conversation also revealed their shared social commitment and sense of active citizenship as a young South African or as a South African. Their religious motive were embedded with their social commitment. None of them really had to prophetize or differentiate between the two. I think in the academia, we only do this. They all expressed love, belonging, and really compassion toward the society and toward the other. Now, cooking, at the same night, we meet at night at 9 o'clock after the iftar, and we set up the 25 pot of acne in the stove. We were more than 10 volunteer chain, but all staff members were there, including Khairanisa, the founder and the director of Mustadafin. At around 10 a.m., people started to crowd it, mostly family, children, women, men, young people started to crowd to visit the site. Most of them actually regular donor for Mustadafin, who I got to know through various interview and conversation with Mustadafin. Just to describe the aesthetic of the scene, of course, our Quranic recitation are always there, but at this night in particular, while the Quranic recitation forming the rhythm of the space, a group of young men, all wearing white dishdasha, came into the space and start to make Islamic unshuda. Now, Tamima put the sound of the CD player off, and most of the crowd also seemed to be familiar with some of the unshuda, and some of them joined the unshuda. Now, with this festive time, Khairanisa stood like in some spaces in the middle, and she was surrounded by many of the crowd when she stated, and this is like an official thanks for all those who there, that thank you all for your support, for supporting us, putting a smile on people's faces. Our people are suffering and your sadaqah make difference. We are feeding 50,000 people every day. Of course, this was actually in 2013. I think now they're feeding way more because I've been to their office. It's a new infrastructure. Your support empower, help us to empower women and youth. She concluding, of course, by telling a story about the Prophet Muhammad helping his neighbor, to which she refer us to Mustadafin slogan. That is, Mustadafin slogan, it's if every man help his neighbor, who will need help. Now, I want to speak briefly about the food distribution, and here I chose another ethnography. This is, of course, I volunteer with Mustadafin, and this allowed me to have a conversation with Khairanisa about inviting Somali for mass iftar, which they again do for a variety of community in Cape Town. And Khairanisa agreed on the idea, but she insisted that Somali women have to come because we want to meet them and establish relation with them. Again, Mustadafin, it's run and funded by Muslim women. Most of their staff are women. So on 25 July 2014, it was the last Friday of Ramadan in 2014, I conducted, which I call a performative ethnography.
Dr. Erlang, yeah. Kindly 7 minutes remaining.
5 minutes, perfect. So in this ethnography, we made the food, we took it to the mosque. Khairanisa and another woman, maybe they were like 5 women from Mustadafin, joined the iftar, but they were very disappointed that Somali women were not there. And that's what, a few days later, I met Khairanisa in her office. Of course, I had to apologize for this. They had to stand outside of the mosque, actually, Khairanisa and Mustadafin staff. She stated in our conversation that took place a few days later that our main task is to empower women. We want to break our fast with Somali women and to build relation with them. So I'm showing this example to show how Mustadafin preparation, cooking, and distribution of food are based on knowledge of and relation with us. Mustadafin plan a long-term giving that empower youth and women, not only feed people here and there, they strategically conduct this plan. Mustadafin ethics of giving is compassionate in relation to others and political toward political change. Those Mustadafin ethics of giving is best understood as a moral economy that is strategically established to counterbalance social problem and bring about social change. Mustadafin social service accord with Thompson's definition of moral economy as being grounded upon a constant traditional view of social norm and obligation. Also, another scholar indicate that waqf and sadaqah are a moral economy, but I argue that these scholars do not pay attention to the religious value. Of course, aesthetic experience help us to. Here, I want to relate this anthropology. I made the anthropology. I hope through this ethnography and the argument, I put my argument clear. But I want to also mention that this anthropology and this ethnography are inscribed ethics, Islamic ethics in the discursive tradition in the Quran and the Hadith. I here give one Hadith that each person, every joint must perform a charity every day the sun come up. To act justly between two people is a charity. To help a man with his mount is to help a man with his mount, lifting him onto it or hoisting on it his belonging is a charity. Every step you take to the prayer is a charity, and removing a harmful thing from the road is a charity. Here we see charity as an ethical disposition of doing good in relation to the other and to the social. It's fundamentally in relation to the social and to other. And in conclusion, of course, I don't have time here, but here in this slide, sorry, the ethics of giving, the Islamic ethics of giving, which is listed in Al-Ghazali book, Kitab Al-Arba'un fi Usul al-Din, secrecy, not showing off your generosity, give from the best you have, feeling pleasure about giving, to choose carefully who to give. All this tell us how giving is fundamentally in relation to others, as not and not only in relation to God. It's fundamentally in relation and fundamentally about knowledge and choosily careful exercise to uplift and to develop the society. And therefore, I see Sadaqah or giving as a moral economy. Other scholars saw it as charity, and then the term charity becomes so problematic because the hierarchy it involved. Other scholars like Fawzia, which I referred to in Indonesia, call it as philanthropy. For me to foreground the social impact and to collapse the social and religious, I put forward that Sadaqah or giving, it's a best understood as a moral economy. And thank you very much.